Hello, welcome to my channel, Sea of Infinity. In this video, I just wanted to briefly kind of discuss like the metaphor or idea of like God having multiple personality disorder. Not as like a literal thing, but I guess just kind of like a metaphor or analogy as a way to kind of really, grasp and talk about that whole concept of like God consciousness, and how that pertains to ourselves and our reality. Like essentially how, people have multiple personality disorder where, usually through a traumatic experience or whatever, but essentially their like consciousness or, brain or mind or whatever kind of like splits off into different personalities that they like form and then use to deal with, different parts of their life or different topics or what have you. But they're still like all very like, unique, different individuals. And I feel like it's such like a good way to kind of think about and grasp the whole idea of how we are all essentially just these various personalities within God's own mind or God's consciousness, almost like the God consciousness has done a similar thing to what our own mind and brains can do in that way that it can fractal off into many personalities. And it's like God consciousness itself has fractaled off into all these billions of personalities that we are. So in that aspect, we're all kind of just like another personality in the, the fractaled mind of God, which really helps drive home that whole idea of how we are all like one consciousness, kind of just one consciousness plopped into different human bodies or vessels, as they like to say. And I feel like it also really helps, kind of drive home that whole idea of how God consciousness is like within everything and anything, animals, insects, but even, like elements, rocks, objects around our home, like everything has a degree of, the God consciousness within it and running through it. And, kind of seeing from the aspect of how our own mind can split its consciousness up in that way of like multiple personality disorder and what have you. I feel like it's just like such a great example to kind of help kind of just give some context to how such a thing is even possible for God consciousness to do such a thing. I'm not saying that we're all just like a symptom of God's crazy mind or that God has like a mental disorder or something like that. I'm just using, just what we call a multiple personality disorder just as an example of how like energy and consciousness and personalities and all that sort of stuff can be formed and created by our mind, which is essentially, a fractal of God consciousness, which then holds, the same power but more powerful. Literally, I feel like it also helps to drive home the whole idea as well of, not taking things so seriously, yourself so seriously or others so seriously, because, we all essentially are just multiple personalities of the one. We all are like a fractal of God. We're all just like one mind fractaled down into many minds. And I guess, just kind of viewing life more in that way and just like the beauty and magic and wonderful connection between everything because of this shared innate energy of God consciousness that we all are and are all connected through, really just provides such a beautiful perspective of viewing life and reality around us. I feel like it's also like a good, analogy and metaphor to use as well in the instance of trying to really comprehend the whole idea of how, God is kind of like an over-governing consciousness while also simultaneously being us, and how we are us, our own mind, while also simultaneously being connected to, our higher self and, God in the universe and what have you. is, kind of in the idea of, when someone has a, multiple personality disorder or what have you, and how so often it's like their, I don't even know what you would call it, but like their forefront conscious mind, their, original self is kind of like the one in control. And then the multiple personalities are kind of fractaled off from that, right? Kind of like having a reality within the human mind where they congregate and converse together or what have you. So I feel like it's such another way to, kind of really comprehend that whole idea, how we all are, individuals and individual personalities, having our own free will and doing our own little things, but also simultaneously are also all just one mind, in the one mind of God. So I feel like it's that similar sort of aspect of how you hear like stories or whatever of people with multiple personality disorder. They're still there, just their own one mind, one human self, but then they almost have like sometimes like, a whole storyline of with these personalities going on in their own mind where they, have all sorts of conversations and do all sorts of things together. It's like, they're different personalities working their own little way, but are also simultaneously all just being governed by that one human mind, right? And I feel like it's such a similar kind of context for, the way that we are all individual personalities, but also are all just the one mind of God at the same time. Kind of like, as they say, like as above, so below, turtles all the way down. Like the Russian babushka dolls that, it's just the same thing in and in and in. I feel like it's just so many of those similarities between like our own realities and our own, observations that really do relate to the over-governing of, God consciousness and all those higher realms and such that, who knows how infinitely expansive that becomes. But it does just seem to have such similar correlations and such in that way between these sort of things that is just, I find really interesting. And, really does help us kind of understand ourselves and our reality a lot more by being able to observe these sort of patterns and such and what have you, and be able to just like see things through a new perspective. Using these sort of metaphors and analogies and stuff also helps us to kind of grasp these ideas and concepts in new ways, which is, really, really exciting and fundamental for the way we move forward through the future as a species. So, exciting times to see where this all ends us up at, as the individual personalities we are, but also as the one mind of God that we are as well, but we can congregate together to, really, really chip forward to a stronger path towards this whole heaven on earth idea. I really do feel like that whole one mind governing concept really comes into play a lot there, where our individual personalities kind of slip into their correct lane a bit more. So things kind of start forming and merging a bit more cohesively, I guess you could say. But yeah, I guess I'll leave that one there for now. But just, just a quick fun little analogy or metaphor, that I thought I would share that just kind of helps to kind of think about these things in a different or more digestible way. Yeah, so I hope you have a lovely, wonderful day. Sending you so much peace, love, light, and blessings as always.